What everyone here needs to solve for is the thing that was the most valuable that Gym Launch had and continues to have, which is you want consumable media. Now, what does that mean? If I teach you how to do math, the day before you learn how to do math, it is infinitely valuable. The day after, the value is approximately zero because you already know how to do it. This is the fundamental issue with education as a product. There's a reason that people graduate from school, right? It's because they have graduated. They learn the stuff. And that's what you want. The point of Tinder is for this app to get deleted. The point is for people to get in a relationship, right? And so you shouldn't feel like you failed if you actually educated someone and taught them. Now, that does create business constraints. So what did the education system do? They just invented infinite education. You can get multiple degrees. You can get a PhD, you can get a master's, you can get a PhD, you can get a double PhD, right? Like they just keep selling more stuff. Fine. But for us, I'll give you two examples, or actually give you three examples of groups that created consumable media, right? Gym Launch's most valuable product that happened or occurred that we were able to give was that we would run ads, we would spend money. So I'd spend 50 grand renting, this is gonna sound silly, renting models who looked good in gym clothing. Then we would do a shoot. Then we would take those ads, we would edit them, cut them, produce them, and then we would test them in 10 to 20 representative markets. And so for us, we had 700 plus locations, live and active, and cycled over thousands over the years. But we would say, okay, we want this to be in a Hispanic market, a black market, a white market, a Canadian market, a Mexican market, whatever, right? And we'd also skew this by quality of operator, right? So if we have really strong operators, really weak operators, we want to see if it's representative, right? And so then what we would do is, let's say we tested 100 ads. We would find the top 5 winners, and then we would hand them to the community who already knew how to run ads. And they would run them in their local areas. And so every month you could have a choice. You could make your own ads and see if they worked and spend money behind them. Or you could just get the ads that you already knew worked, that had already been tested, and then just cash them in. Which one would you rather do? Well, if you knew every ad you had was going to be a winner, you would just only run winners. How nice would that be? Well, that's exactly what we did and do for gyms. And so the value of what they pay us is an approximation of two things. One is how much money they would lose trying to test to find ads that worked, and notwithstanding the effort of scripting, recording, editing, making their own. But on top of that, how much money they would directly make from our ads in general. And so you have both of those things. Now let's run it through the original litmus test that we had around value creation. So the closest thing the perfect thing I could do is literally just hand them customers, right? That's the closest thing I could do. Now, we looked at that. We were like, should we run ads and just sell them for them and then just send them to the gym? It was something we considered, right? But we decided that was a little bit outside of scope. And so we're like, well, what's 1 degree less than that? Well, if we made the pages and we tested the pages, and then we made the ads and we tested the ads, then all we would do is hand them a winning scratch-off ticket to put into the machine we had them pay for one time. And so this is the point. If you have a system, right? You have a system that you sell one time, right? This is the education component. This is the model. Some of you, this is B2B, right? But this works the same B2C, same concept, but you're just, the thing, you have some core curriculum that you want to take someone through to change the behavior. Fine. Now they understand how to sell, whatever. They understand how to run ads. Now they need the inputs into that machine. You want to be the supplier of those inputs, because that's something they're going to need this month, next month, the month after, and has tremendously high and demonstrable value. So the second business he did wholesaling. He taught people how to wholesale. And so what he would do is he had his team go find properties and then sort them, list them, rate them, and then every month he delivers a PDF to his community of wholesalers with pre-vetted properties and that meet all their deal specifications. And then all his students or people in the membership community would have to do is just just walk it, right? That's all they have to do is just go to the address. And so by doing that, he was able to take all of the friction associated. If they get one deal, it pays for the whole thing for the year, right? And so again, there's this common theme of, okay, how can I do the work for them? And the 201 version is, how can I take the risk for them? Right? So like Gym Launch did the work and took the risk. So I fronted the cash, right? He fronted the labor. And so you want to think think about the net gain here. Did we make their lives easier without having them incur more cost? Absolutely. Same thing with the wholesaler. Absolutely. And so there was another guy that teaches people how to do print on demand. So that was his thing, like print stuff, right? And so he has like 2% churn in his community. And what his consumable media is that every week or every I can't remember if it was every week or every month, whatever, he would go in and he would show with his tool how he was finding the trending products or logos or whatever that were printed and showing them how to sort for them. And then he would make that into a list and then he would put it into the community. And so the idea there is, yet again, how can I chew the food for them and then spit it into their mouths? Disgusting. Danielle, disgusting. I don't know why you would say that. Right, of course. Like little baby birds. Baby birds, John, exactly. And so if you're like, Alex, can you tell me what mine is? No. Fundamentally, you're going to get paid a tremendous amount of money for answering that question. But what you need to zero in on is, what is this consumable value? And I would maybe even make the argument that's maybe the most important thing that you can do for a membership. I think I'm going to say it. I think it's the most important. If you want to drive down churn in your membership, you want to have something that they use and consume on a monthly basis, because you want them to use and consume the community on a monthly basis. And so you just have to think about what that thing is for you. Like, are you guys getting this? Like, you can always pre-chew the food. Like, there's always more work that you can do, which is typically in the form of research, analysis, and then distillation of that information repackaged into something that is very easily usable. And so that is a net gain of time that they get for the value that they'll ultimately be able to trade that for in the future when they use the thing based on the education that they got from you, that they paid you for one time up front, that was probably more valuable. So it's like, you want to get them to pay you one time to have a system, and then many times for the inputs to that system to make the system work. This is fundamentally the idea of, like, you sell an ink printer, and then you sell them the ink every month, right? You teach them how to do hair extensions, and then they buy your hair extensions every month when they need to use those for their customers. You teach them how to sell supplements, and then they sell your supplements to their new customers every single month. Each your customer's complexity. Like, that is the work. Like, that's what we get paid for. If you're like, man, this sounds hard, or man, this sounds like work, you know what's even more work? Being poor. Like, you know what? It's even more work? Finding new customers. Way more work than keeping the ones you've got. I'll tell you this from having sold a lot of weight loss in my life. We used to sell fitness, nutrition, accountability. By far, 75% of the weight was on accountability, because it was the thing that everyone felt like they needed. Most people know they need to stop eating cookies and they need to move. They already know that. The problem is they're not doing it. And so it was basically like, we just said, like, we will generically keep you accountable. And we had these, 5 ways that we keep people accountable, and we walk through. It was mostly explained, like, we mostly sold an accountability system, which is what I did at my gyms, more than a fitness system. It was like, these are the ways that we did it. And we had 3 levels of accountability. You have peer-to-peer accountability, alumni accountability, and expert accountability. If you guys want to pitch, this is what it is. And so peer-to-peer accountability is that you want to know you're going through something with somebody else shoulder to shoulder, so that you don't feel alone. They're going through the same step at the same stage as you. They're suffering, they're sore, they feel, nauseous, whatever. It's nice to have somebody doing it so you don't feel alone. The second type of accountability that's nice is somebody who's one step ahead. That's the alumni. That's the person at the end of the racetrack being like, you got it, you can make it. They're cheering you on. Right. So we have a whole group of alumni who've been there. They've lost 20, they lost the second 20, lost the third 20. And now they're on their journey to get their dream body from skinny to toned. Right. That's where they're at now. And then there's the third type of accountability, which is you want expert accountability. You want somebody who's helped thousands of people just like you get to where you're trying to go, so that when you run into trouble, they've already solved this problem 100 times before this, and they know exactly what to do so that you can break through the plateau and it doesn't feel like a plateau because it's only 1 week of lack of progress. You got feedback and then boom, you keep going. And so you don't hit plateaus per se, if you have a long enough time horizon that you're doing the measurements on, because you have an expert who's there who can measure progress in multiple ways. And so for us, we know that this plan will get you to your goal. And so everything else that we have is around making sure that you just stick with it. And so if you heard that from me as a sales pitch for accountability, you'd probably be relatively compelled by that. And you guys, by the way, can use literally all three of those because you have all three of those. You have other people in the community. You have people who've hopefully finished or gotten some sort of ideal that are inside, that are your testimonials. And then you've got you. You are the expert. You have done this with hundreds of people just like them, going to where they're trying to go. And when they get stuck, you know how to debottleneck them. And so you just need to package it in a way that they see the value, which I think if you use the pitch, you can literally just download this and just repeat it because it works just fine. My encouragement to you is to think through what the consumable portions of your stuff are. So I'll give you an example. Community is consumable. You use it. And then next, like you can't say, oh, I've communityed up. I'm filled to the brim on community. It doesn't work that way. It's consumable. Friendship is consumable, right? These are things that you go back for, right? And so the idea is now the question is, how valuable is it? What are people willing to pay for it? Right? That's the real measure, is how willing to pay are people for community. I think they're willing to pay something. It might not be as much as you want. And so that's why we add these other components into it. But again, just adding more stuff that people don't use doesn't make something more valuable. This is what I like. If that's the theme of this call, is like, if you have one thing that people use and then you add 4 things that they don't use, it's not more valuable. In a lot of ways, it's less valuable. So we want to make it easy for them. We want to pre-chew their food. We want to find the complexity. And we want to do that work in the background. So one of my friends is a very good product he's a product guy from software, and he calls them magical products or magical experiences. And he talks about this as though, he said, it has to happen in the background. It has to feel magical. And he obsesses about this. At $250 million, he's a very good product guy, right? And so the idea that I'm talking to you guys about is like, okay, what would be magical? If you just got an ad, you press go, and then money came out, you'd be like, that was magical, right? If you just said like, oh, here's the list of homes that are already pre-vetted. I just need to get in my car, be there in 20 minutes and say, yes, this looks like the pictures, I'm in. That's a pretty magical experience. Many of you are giving like the cookbook and saying, make a cake. But they're like, well, I don't have flour. I don't have eggs. I don't have an oven, and I don't have pots, and I don't have pans. And you're like, just figure it out. But that figuring it out is where the fortune is made, is when you figure it out for them, level 1. Figuring out for them at scale, level 2. Just actually take the next 4 minutes and try and brainstorm ideas for what is consumable, valuable for your community, because there is a version of it. And there's probably multiple things you can do. If you just do that, it may be the one big thing that's the unlock that you need to get customers to retain.